Hello, this is Decide This, and this is kind of a reply to, or my first reply to Adam Koralik, or I think I mispronounced his last name, but um, who cares? Anyways, this is a reply to a video he recently put up, and with the video, I had kind of half disagree with him and half agree with him. And especially the last thing, which I'm going to get to later in this video. But the first thing is I'm going to talk about what I disagreed before I get into what I agree, because what I agreed with him on pisses me off so much about the Xbox One. But first, the disagreement. He said quite basically that digital downloading is a rental service, and I have to bluntly disagree with it in a way. He's sort of right, which will lead into what I agree with him, but it's not a complete another, rental service. And there's plenty of proof. First of all, Steam nowadays have gone under a massive amounts of change. They're now available for Macs and Linux. But the thing is with Steam, yeah, it's basically a digital downloading service. But I can even add games if I want to physically put in the disk and then run the installer and then play the game through the Steam service. Of course, I won't have any achievements. But the thing is, what Steam is now offering, I think for PC users only right now, Mac users still can't do this, is the ability to remove your game from Steam and still play it. And as well as move your files around so you can keep it. And that's the other thing. With a rental service would be something like OnLive, which is this cloud-based game that you get no physical file whatsoever, and you play the game, and you just can't do anything. And if the internet goes down, everything is lost. It's gone. But as we all know, OnLive failed completely, and I mean they failed. OnLive now is owned by a different company. And to tell you the truth, I didn't really like OnLive. It was a bad system, anyways, and it was too soon. I mean, by the time OnLive will become prevalent, or anything, or cloud-based gaming like OnLive becomes prevalent, it probably won't happen for another. Hell, I'll be an old man by then. I mean, really old. I mean, probably in my 70s or 80s, or even dead. Who knows? But with all digital downloading like services like the iOS devices, the thing is, and the thing about the iOS is that I have an iPod Touch, and with my iPod Touch, I have game files on there, and I used to have the original iPod Touch because I'm an Apple fanboy and all. I admit to it, but the thing is, I have programs and even some games that are still around and haven't been, updated or any kind, still available in the App Store one way or another. But, I've had these games ever since the App Store opened, and I've been able to transfer it over through all the generations of iPod Touches. And not only that, I've been able to share these programs with other people. It's a little trick you can do with the iOS devices. Basically, you can go into, if you buy an app for yourself, you can go into another person's iOS, put in your username and password, and then download that app for them, and then switch it back. And after a while, the program will say, the iOS device, that program will then, authorize that app for that person without, really doing much. You can do that within iOS. It's pretty fucking amazing. And the same with Android, and the same with Windows phones in a way. To anybody who even has a Windows phone, which is like only 5% of the market. But I was able to go through all the different versions of iOS, even before it was called iOS, when they just had an app store, with my iPod touches, and I was able to carry on the same programs and keep them with me and replay these games however I want it and whenever I want it. And that was great. And the thing is I didn't really have to download this game over and over and over and over. I could just transfer it from the original device onto the new device and then keep going. Daisy chained it all the way down. Well, not physically daisy chained it, but you know what I mean. I mean, the only minus side was there's no physical copy, but I'm able to trade it and I'm able to play it on separate devices and different devices and with no real physical problems or change to the applications. And the same, and it's not just games, basic apps and stuff like that, and even on Mac, which they're getting rid of all their disk drives. You know, it's downloading basic applications and shit like that, and I'm able to move. Well, for now, I'll get to Apple's new press meeting on a different video, but I'm still able to take these applications or these programs and move them to different systems and onto different hard drives and keep them for myself away from the App Store and without even having to bother to go to the App Store because, put it on a hard drive, there you go. You now own the physical copy along with a whole bunch of other physical copies. So I don't see these app stores as a sort of a hindrance or a rental service. But the part I do agree with Adam on, and this is the part I said I was going to later, but this is the part I do agree with him on. He said something that was very interesting that got to me about the Xbox One and why it's a rapid piece of shit. And I really mean it. The Xbox One is bad. And I've made a ton of videos why. And this is what I point to. It's not the DRM or the mandatory install shit that really pisses me off. Even though they say you can only trade it to one friend if they've been on your friends list for 30 days, which is way too fucking restrictive. Even the iOS fucking doesn't have that kind of restrictions. I'm able to just, do that little trick I mentioned earlier, no problem. But this is just fucking stupid, and it's that stupid fucking verifications. Adam basically said, and I agree 100%, was that the Xbox One has a death sentence. A goddamn fucking death sentence. And when I heard it, this is also the reason why I'm making the video, because I absolutely agree 100%. Is that 24-hour a day fucking internet checks and verification checks that they're gonna put on Xbox One. That's my deal breaker. I wasn't gonna get an Xbox because I don't even have an Xbox 360. I have a Wii, right? And a Wii U, which has all my old Wii stuff on there. But even I was able to transfer all my downloaded games from my Wii and transfer it onto my Wii U with no fucking problems. And I can play my old Wii games all on the Wii U. The only thing was that I just had to take my old Wii and give it off to somebody else because, well, I didn't need it anymore. And as for PlayStation 4 not having backwards compatibility, I kind of understand why they don't. Microsoft is bullshitting people, but Sony really isn't, and it all has to do with the cell processor. And I'm not going to get into the cell processor because it would take a whole string of videos to explain the problem with that damn thing and how it's been a clusterfuck for Sony. And do it a whole backwards compatibility or a kind of emulation of the cell processor games onto the current hardware of the PlayStation 4, it's not going to happen. It's literally impossible. So there's just no way they could do backwards compatibility. And Sony is still trying to support the good old PlayStation 3, which is both good and bad. But at least they're not. At least they're not trying to complete and utterly bullshit people. But the problem with the PlayStation 3 and the cell processor, mainly its hardware problems, is I don't think it's going to last very much longer. After 3 years, they're just going to stop support on it. But the thing about it is, even with the download games that are on the old PlayStation 3, you can still play those on there. Even if when Sony says we're going to drop support, hell, Nintendo dropped support for the Wii, but you can still play your games on the Wii. And you can still play all those online games. Depending. But, in the old DLC games, if you've already installed them. The only problem with the Wii is, due to hard drive limitation, you had to put everything on SD cards, so you better keep those SD cards close by and don't ever delete them. And here's something funny about the Xbox 360. Even when Microsoft in supports on the 360, you could still play the old games on them, and you can still, play the old DLC games as long as you already installed them. It's just not gonna. It just isn't gonna die, unless Microsoft decides to do something really stupid and puts up an update that bricks every Xbox 360 and say, now you're gonna switch to Xbox One, bitches. Yeah, that would be really bad for Microsoft if they do that. But this whole death sentence on the Xbox One and that 24-hour check, it's bad. It's insanely bad. And it's bad for after, when Microsoft says, after so many years, like 5, 6, 10 years or whatever, whenever they decide to come up with their new Xbox, and then they're like, the new Xbox 5 or whatever, or 360, 720, whatever. The problem is that as soon as Microsoft says, we're going to stop support on the Xbox One, and this is bad even if the Xbox One flops so bad that they even have to stop support, because here's the problem. Once that 24-hour check is done on the Xbox One, the whole thing bricks. And in fact, it always, as I said, the whole thing will brick and you can't play any more games at all. And this is pretty much true if your internet drops. But after, it's no longer being supported and they got a new Xbox out, this is a fucking major problem, because even if you plug it into the internet, that the variability check servers that it goes to verify all the programs that are on there will be gone too. So it will have no way of verifying anything or doing any kind of internet check, which means that the system is going to be bricked on video games forever. So all those games that you just bought for your Xbox One is unplayable. Period. It's done. You cannot play it anymore, and you cannot access your game libraries anymore. And if you go out and buy any discs for the Xbox One, it won't work anymore. And even if you plug it into the internet, it won't play anymore. It will just be a fucking paperweight, and that's bad. And I believe Adam said this in his video, and I agree 100%. This is a terrible thing. Even devices that have strict, digital download doesn't even go this bad. You can go out and buy an original iPod Touch right now, where the guy didn't erase any of the games, but you can still play those games that are on there, and that is from a device with nothing but digital distribution on there. But you can still play the fucking games. It won't brick the games out just because it's an old device. This is probably one of the most dumbest moves I have seen any company ever make. And I should have been warned, because Microsoft was actually considering OnLive, I'm not joking, they were actually considering OnLive as an actual threat to their business model and an actual competition in the console market. The problem is that OnLive failed, and it failed not that long ago. And OnLive then is not the OnLive today. In fact, there are no new games going on OnLive. I checked. You can just download OnLive for free and just put up a membership, and you don't even have to download anything. You can just look at the libraries things, and it doesn't update at all. There hasn't been a new game in On Live in a year. And the warning signs to Microsoft that should have warned them that On Live was a complete and utter failure was when that started to happen and when their library just literally stopped. It just stopped. It stopped updating, and it's been like a year and going on almost to 2 years now, and there are no new libraries on Live at all. That should have put up the red flags to Microsoft and say, "Holy shit, OnLive failed. They are not the company that we thought they were going to be. We need to change these policies now, or we're going to doom ourselves in the same way." And they didn't. And now there's a console that's going to be put out by Microsoft that literally will become a paperweight when Microsoft is done making games for it. Meaning that if you're a big Halo fan, you better enjoy that new Halo 5 game for what it's worth, because as soon as that console is no longer supported by Microsoft, you now have a $500 paperweight.